Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at Wayfarers of the South Tigris. I'm going to show you how to play solo. I'm going to do a few turns so you understand what the game is like, and then I'll share with you my thoughts on it to help you hopefully understand if this is a game that is good for you from a solo perspective or one that you'd rather pass on. Let's get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And if you have, thanks so much for the support. I truly appreciate it. So, first of all, I got to apologize for a little bit of the glare right here that's blocking this little spot. I can't really seem to do much about it since this sprawls in this way, and I want to show everything I can. So I apologize for that. But let me explain to you what's basically going on in this game. This game is one large tableau builder, okay? They call it a panorama, but basically what you're doing is you're trying to build these, basically your panorama by playing cards of different types that will ultimately score you points. And the way you're trying to do that is playing cards of similar tags with regards to the land types to get the most points possible. So if you play two of the same cards throughout the game, you'll get 2 points. 3 of the same will be 3. 4 is 5. 5 is 8. 6 is 12. And 7 is 16. Plus, if you do one of each of the 4, it's worth 5. So that's one way you score. The other way you score is by taking these star cards or these space cards, and each of the space cards will provide you a specific scoring category based on what it says. So for instance, this one right here says you're going to score 1 point at the end of the game for each minaret that you have, or minaret tag that you have, right? And there's one right there. This one says you get 1 for each, this is worth a point, plus you get 1 more for each upgrade that you have. And so this one's for planet cards, which are 4 to those. And so basically all these things are additional ways to score. And then these cards, which are rarer, if you fulfill a large task, it will then double the points of one of the star cards or space cards, pardon me, you're pointing at. So for instance, this one says right here, if you manage to get 3 of the blue upgrades, which are these right here, wherever you have put this card, it will double that space card's points at the end of the game. And that is the major way you score points. The other way you score points is you do get points for building some of these different upgrades, and you'll get points if you are the majority winner in each of these 3 minarets at the end of the game. So that's what's going on. Now, for the AI, they score points in a completely different way. I'd say a fairly different way. They're scoring based on the type of card they acquire. So for the green cards, they score 1 point at the end of the game. For the land and water cards, they score 2. For the space cards, they score 3. And for these inspiration cards, they'll score 4. It doesn't matter what's on the cards. They never interact with any of the icons or anything like that on the cards. They play a completely different game of gathering cards. Now, they will also get upgrades, which will allow them to do more things in their specialty. They will also rest like you, and they will also gain comet points in case of a majority, so they can figure out if they've got the majority or not. They are really playing a different game than you are. So I know a lot of people have said, oh, the AI is cheating or it's very swingy. I don't know about the swinginess. I haven't played enough games to know it's swingy. But I don't think it's cheating. It's playing a different type of game. And that game is advancing the card decks, which is what you want anyway in a 2-player game. Because a lot of times they're placing workers, they're retaining workers, by picking up the cards, they're placing influence, and they're basically choosing cards and removing them, just like you would expect if you were playing another opponent. Okay? They're also moving down this track just like you are, and for the most part, getting all the bonuses like you would, but not having to worry about crossing any thresholds. The way that you execute the AI will show you in a second, but I want to basically give you that flow first, okay? So I am about, I'd say, 15% or so into the game, not too far. You can see that I've rested once and I've journaled once. Just got my tableau kind of started here with these 2 cards and have finished. I just came off a rest turn, okay? The AI has gone off a rest turn, but has already drawn 2 cards right here. The AI is completely controlled by this little deck of 6 cards here, 3 blue, 3 red. When the third of one of those colors come up, After they finish that turn, the next turn, they're going to do a rest action. They're going to shuffle these cards back in, and they're going to go again. The big deal about how they make their choices is based on this thing right here, this little board. And what I'm going to show you, in fact, I'll use a different board so I can zoom in. These boards come in 4 flavors depending on the specialty of the AI. And what you've got going on here is you have basically like this little rondelle. And as you draw a card, the card is going to have a 0, a 1, or a 2 silver. I don't even know why they say silver because it does not do anything with money, but there's a 0, 1, or 2 up there on the top. And that will denote how far your marker moves around this track. Then, depending on what it's going to do, it will decide what the action tells you. You use this to determine the priority. And you figure out if it's a 0, 1, a 2, a 3, or 4 by taking the last 2 cards drawn, or if there's only one, then the only one drawn, summing those up and determining the number. The number determines which card it's going to take from left to right in these 4 stacks. The color determines which stack it's going to interact with. In this case, with this particular AI, green is only a 1 out of the 8 choices. Many of them are black, a couple blue, and some yellow. And when this thing goes around, every time it goes around here, it's going to trigger this action, which is going to help it put influence out on the minarets, okay? When it gets upgrades, it's going to cover these things up in this fashion, and that's going to do whatever the icon says. And you can notice there's differences here. Like, for instance, the one I'm holding, you know, it has to do with the minarets here, and your specialty is going to be doing upgrades, okay? But the one that I'm playing against, this situation here advances the shooting star track, or the meteorite track, and it's basically focusing on acquiring space cards, which are 3 points apiece. And then there's one that's going to focus on journaling, and then there's one that focuses heavily on influence. So there's 4 different distinct personalities based on which one you select. And you can kind of play against them, and I do appreciate that because it makes them focus on different things. Now, let's go ahead and demonstrate what a couple of turns look like. What you're doing this turn on your turn is you're either going to place one of your dice onto your tableau to take an action, and the actions are located in these dice slots here, or you're going to place an available worker that you may have acquired on a previous turn or had somehow, and you're going to do the worker action. You can see that there are workers on these cards. That's because they have been played previously by myself or the AI, and they're now available to me to get if I acquire this card, or if I take this action right here, I can retrieve any one of any color, and sometimes that's worth it. So let's go ahead and demonstrate a couple of things. Number one, I'm not going to go through all the tags, but the big deal about this game is in order to pay for a lot of these actions, you have to have either a tag showing, or more importantly, you have to have in your caravan slot a die that matches the specific icon you're trying to do. So for instance, I have a 1 die right here. If I was to use this 1 die, then I would look at this 1 column and I would resolve any of the icons that are found in there. So that means this 1 die in its 1 configuration is like it is a camel. This is representing a camel. So I could put it on this spot because it needs a camel, okay? Or I could convert this die to a 2 because it has a a plus over there, and that would physically change it into a 2, which means it now is representing a ship. Note, though, that any of the icons printed on this caravan canvas thing, they are only when you cover it up. You ignore all these icons besides while you're playing. But when you cover them up, you get a one-time bonus. You cover them up with those kinds of things. So maybe I want to get one of these cards. I want to get some more blue cards. In order to do that, I will need to get a ship to be able to spend it. Now there's 2 ways. There's other ways you can get it too. A lot of times these green cards, where they're tucked under these spaces, will offer an instant gain of some sorts. So if I had a green card tucked under here and this card activated, then whatever it said under here would be what happens, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate a couple of those things, and you'll kind of see how the flow goes, all right? I'm not going to explain all the rest of the rules, but this will help you get a flow of the type of game this is. So I've got a 1, a 5, and a 5. The 5s are telescopes, which helps me get some star cards. And because I want to start honing my strategy, I think I'm going to get some star cards. So I'm going to place this 5 in a spot that lets me get star cards. Well, the only place I have to do that is this right here. If it's a telescope, which the 5 is because of this upgrade, I can either take a star card or I can take a star upgrade, paying the associated costs. Well, in this case, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a star card first. And the one I want is going to be this one right here. Actually, I take that back. I want this one. Now, this one costs 4 silver. So I've got the 4 silver. I'm going to pay those, or 4 coins. What do you want to say? I'm going to get this. This is immediately, the reason I want this one is because it immediately gives me the opportunity to put an influence on the black minaret over here. That's good because that'll help me move up faster on the journal. And one thing I've found in my game so far is this guy likes to move up pretty fast in the journal because he doesn't have to worry so much about anything besides where he is associated with me. If he gets influence in this black spot, he's going to spend it to try to speed along and end the game. The game ends when one person gets to the end. Both players have one more turn. That's it. Then we score. So I can put this in any location up top. It really doesn't matter. And now at the end of the game, I'm going to score 1 point plus the number of points of planet cards that I have. Okay, so I'm going to be trying to get a bunch of planet cards. And if you forget how that works, you can look in here. And I will say that for the most part, the icons are fairly self-explanatory in this. But even that little bit of a difference there is just something I kind of look up every now and then because it says 1 point plus the number of planets. So to me, what that means, and that equals 1 point. So that means that I take the number of planets I have plus this 1 additional. So if I had 3 planets, I would get 3 plus 1 would be 4. I think that's what that means. And so I have to go and kind of look, and that's a little bit of something. There's so many different cards in the game and such. I do find myself looking that up, and that may not be 100% correct, but you get the understanding of, I would say, you know, you get into some of these things where you just kind of have to search it out. And I found that some of them I can't quite suss out from the manual itself. There's just, it's like they're missing just one. See, it says there are 5 planet cards. You score 1 victory point plus additional victory point per planet tag, including its own. So I guess this means that this would score 2 at this point. Okay. All right, so I've done that. I've taken my turn. I've spent that. And I put the dice down. So then at the end of my turn, I advance these cards like so. Then I flip over the next card in the AI deck. My turn is done, by the way. The AI deck is over here. Again, it's 6 cards. Oh, it's a blue. All right. So 3 blues, which means it's going to rest right away. Now, it shows a 2, so I move this up 2 spaces. 1, 2. And it tells me my primary action would be what's on the top here. Well, I don't have any green workers, so I can't do that. So then I go to this action on the bottom, which you can always fulfill no matter what. And this one, in this case, says take a space card. That's what he's focusing on. Well, how do I know which space card to take? Well, I look at these two. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 is over here. This is the space section, so it's this card. And if I couldn't take this one, I would go in that direction based on this arrow. Now, the sooner you can learn this, the easier it will be to execute this guy. Okay, so what I recommend you do is thoroughly understand exactly what this is saying and practice it in such a way, just so you know, because this is what you're doing every turn. The faster you get this concept, the quicker and the easier it will be to actually execute. Because this AI is not that tough to execute, but the priorities, they're like opaque until all of a sudden it clicks, and then you're like, oh, perfect. 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is, once it like clicks and you know, it's so much easier. And which color am I going for? It's where this guy is. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then that makes it move so much faster. So I hope me overemphasizing that is going to help you if you decide to play this game and get this game, just kind of feel out the flow. Okay, so I know he's going to rest next turn. Now it comes back to me. All right, so, and you can rest at any time, by the way, but you get incentivized to rest if you only have 0 or 1 die remaining, because then it'll let you activate your rest power. Okay, so I could rest right now, but that would be foolish, and then I wouldn't get this, which is really important. The journaling aspect and moving up here is extremely important in this game. So the next thing I'd like to do is I would like to acquire this card right here. And I want to do that because I like the idea of putting this Enforcer under it if I can. And this Enforcer also has a green guy on it, which I'd like to have access to because these green worker spaces are quite powerful. So in order to do that, I have to have a ship and 2 of these provisions. Well, I have the +1. The +1 because of this plus over here. I'm sorry, I have the 1. Because of the plus, I can make it a 2. It's now a ship. I place it here. I spend the 2 provisions. I take any blue card I want. I want this blue card. This blue card is going to give me a one-time bonus of 3 coins. And wherever it shows these little icons right here, that's going to be a one-time bonus if it happens to match up, and it does, with a card that I have existing in my tableau. So I'm going to get the 3, and lo and behold, as luck would have it, I will get 1 more coin, and I can influence 1 more of these minarets. Now the minarets are good for the 3 points into the game if you're the most there, but they also allow you to do an activity. If you spend, during the time you would spend, 1 of these for the black, you can increase your journal spot 1 space. So while you're journaling, you can go an extra space if you spend a black. Here, when you're spending a die, before you do that, you can discard 1 of these to modify a die up to 2 times in a plus or a minus direction. And here you can spend 1 of the blue ones to act as a ship. For instance, in this case, when you need 2 ships, one way you could do it would be to spend a blue one there and use a 2. That would give you the action for the 2 ships. All right, so my turn's done there. I go ahead and slide this out. He is going to rest. When he rests, the first thing he does is see, is there a comet on the bottom of his card? There is not, so I do not advance in the comet track. Then, this case, he is going to take a space card. Which space card is he going to take? 0 plus 2 is 2. 1, 2. He's going to take this card right here. All right, so he puts that in his pile, does not activate it, does nothing else. Then he is going to journal. Now, because he and I are in the same spot, if he had black influence, he would actually try to spend 2 of them to go 1 additional spot. He doesn't have the influence there, so he can't do that. Then we look and see, did he rest because of blue cards or red cards? If it's blue cards, he goes in this direction. If it's red cards, he would go in that direction. So since it's blue cards, he goes in this direction right here, and he will resolve exactly what it says on the board. Now, because of this miserable glare, you can't see what it says on the board. But if no, there's not much I can do. Oh yeah, there we go. Now you can see a little bit better. It says take an influence or inspiration card and add a die. Well, he doesn't have any dice. So it says here, if he's going to add a dice, he's going to get an upgrade. Well, which color upgrade? He's in the black section. Black section's over here. And in these things, 1, 2, 3, 4. So he's going to add another 1 of these to his spot. And it, lo and behold, covers up a black card. So he's going to get yet another card. 1, 2, 3, 4. We never reset this until the very end of the turn. So we've already determined his number is 2. So because he can't go there, we look at the arrow. It says take the next one to the right. There we go. And we also have to get 1 of these inspiration cards. Because he's in the upper spot right there, he will remove this card based on what it says over here. He never takes the top card. He either takes the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, depending on which row he's in over there. Now his turn is completely done, so now we can slide out all these additional things, slide down and make a full reset. Okay. Then we take his cards, we shuffle them up, and he's ready for the next time. All right, so it's my turn again. Now, I want to get this card, like I said, right there. To do it, it's one of the easier things to do. I basically have to place any die in this spot to get a green card. I'm going to take my 5 and do that. So then I'm going to take this green card, which comes with a green worker, because he was there. And it only costs me whatever it says in the upper left-hand corner, which in this case is 1 silver. I happen to have that. Now, I can only place this card on a land or sea tile that matches this icon right here. So it has to go under here. And what this is going to let me do is when I rest next time, I'm going to be able to move 1 of my influence to any spot I want, plus get a coin, which is kind of handy. So let's see if I could put it under here without bumping the camera. I tuck that card right under there, which I think you can barely see. Yep, it's right under there now. And that's where these guys go. And then I slide out some more. Now, I'm out of dice. I could pass, but I do want to play this worker before I pass. Okay, so now he comes out here. He has a 1, so we're going to move 1 space. It says the first priority is to discard 2 yellow minarets or influence there to get the yellow card of his choice, which he has 3, so he's going to discard these 2 right here. And then he's going to then do the yellow card. What he's going to do, he's got 1 out there. So like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to take this one. It's going to net him this yellow worker also, which he can use on other turns. His turn is done. We slide out. Okay, back to me now. I want to place this. I haven't demonstrated how these workers work yet, but I'm going to demonstrate it right now. When you play a worker, you put them on a card, and wherever you put it on the card, you do that action associated with it. The color matters. So green is the only one that can go up here. So usually I try to play green up here if at all possible. But green can also be used in any other spots. Here it's green or yellow. Here it's green or blue. And if I wanted, I could put it over here, which can take any worker. The only issue with putting a worker out here is these cards are pretty rare to come by. So when a worker goes out there, the only way you're really to get it back is this or some real good luck. So what I think I'd like to do is perhaps, I'm about to journal. Now my journal entry says to cross over to this next space, I have to have either 2 green cards, which I don't have, or 1 yellow upgrade, which I do have. When I get there, I also need something to come off that spot over here. So that would be either 1 C card, which I have, or 1 like waterfall, whatever that card is. And I have both of those. But the biggest deal of why I want to do this sooner rather than later is I want to beat him to this spot to get that green worker first, at least to get into my possession. So all things considered, I'm going to place this guy right here so I can do a journal action right now. So I'm going to move into this spot right now. And, oh, and by the way, I get a provision. That lets me get a new die and roll it right away. And then take one of these inspiration cards. So I'm trying to think about what's going to play in my best interest. And I think this one's pretty synergistic. Because this says, if you get 3 planets, you'll double the score. Well, I've got that 1 planet, and there's 1 out there. So I'm going to try to rush to get it. I'll put this in here so that the 2 compound each other. And maybe I'll be able to get a little engine going. But you see how that would potentially work well. Okay? If I didn't want to use that, I could have discarded that just to take one of those actions. But I don't think that's a great idea, if at all possible. I'd rather have the double point possibility. Now, anytime I do one of these journal actions, I could discard this right here to move again, and I will. So I'm going to discard my influence to move immediately, and I'm going to go to one of these, this spot right here, which is going to allow me to influence 2 cards. And this is a concept I haven't explained yet. Why do I influence a card? Well, if the AI wants to interact with any of the cards that I influence, they have to pay me either 1 provision or 1 gold, or coin, which I get out of the bank. But I can also discard 1 provision or 1 coin to make it so that they can't interact with that card. And it pushes them to the next card over. So I kind of want to do that because I want this card, like I said. I don't want them to scoop that up. And I would like to get this card too because this card has a ton of things that I could potentially activate there. It's a very fruitful card, plus it has a bunch of tags. So it's got cool stuff, and it also helps me do more influencing and journaling. And it comes with a blue worker, and the more workers I have, the more turns I can take. So that's why I put those influence out there. It just helps me to, get a little bonus, and also gives me the opportunity to push them away from taking a card that I have my eye on. All right? So we've done, let's see, so I jumped up. Oh, and then I get the green worker. So now with the green worker here, I am going to be able to place the, I can do that again. I can use another green action if I want to in my turn. So we flip another one here. He can do a green or a blue. He's going to do a blue. It's a 0, so he's still in this section. So 0 plus 1 is 1. Where's he going to put it? He's in the blue section. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to put it here. There's already a worker there. If there's a worker there, you can't put it there. So he has to move over 1 based on his arrows. He's going to take this action. It says give him 2 provisions and 1 influence. Well, he doesn't get provisions, but when he gets provisions, he moves this further. He's going to move it 1, 2 spaces, bump that up for the 2 provisions, and then he gets to put 1 of these influence right there on the blue. Back to me now. I could place this green worker or pass. The green worker gives me some pretty good opportunities to improve some stuff. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this green worker here so I can get one of these bonuses without having to pay for it. And since I don't have access to any of these carrier pigeons, I'm going to get this carrier pigeon upgrade right now. I'm going to put the carrier pigeon upgrade. Let's see. Let's put it right over this guy right here. That'll get me a provision. It makes me a little nervous, though, because I'm kind of putting it in the middle, but we'll see what we can do. Once you place these things, you cannot move them again. And these don't flip, but you can flip the other ones over to see. For instance, if I didn't want to get a plus, I could flip it over for a minus. And it would be on the other, it'd be on the same side, but it would be a minus. It'd be different side. They have to go face up. You can't reconfigure them. They have to go in the orientation. And once they're there, they're there. So that let me do that without having to pay the $2, which is good. I'm happy about that. And then it goes back to him. So he's going to go ahead and choose another card. In this case, play a yellow. Where is he going to play it? He doesn't move because it's a 0. He's going to play it in the yellow spots. These 2 are 0, so he'd play it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here it's a 0, so he plays it over here. He's going to place an influence on the yellow minaret, and because he can't get the 2 coins, he's going to move this up 2 spaces, 1, 2. That's the end of his turn. I have 1 left. I think what I'm going to do now, you get the flow. I think you're getting the hang of it. You're seeing all these things that I've been doing. That 2 I could use as a boat. I could get other things, but I think I'm going to call it right here. I think you've got a good understanding of the flow of this game and what it's about. I'm going to go ahead and return to the top and tell you what I think. All right, so that is a really in-depth look, I think, at the gameplay, the solo bot, how it looks when you're soloing this game, Wayfarers of the South Tigris. So what am I going to say about this game? First of all, I really like it. I do. I think it's a lot of fun. I like building the tableau. I like the card choices. I like the way it scores, that you're trying to get pairs, triplets, quadruplets, etc. The more you get of one type, that's a big deal. But also what's really cool is those space cards that give you those conditions to score. I think that's a lot of fun. I also think it's fun that you can configure your dice with those upgrades in such a way to make it very flexible on what you can do. So there are a lot of really nice strategic and tactical choices in this game. Strategic in the fact that you can focus on the type of cards that you want to get. Tactical in the fact that you've got to deal with the fact that the cards are going to come up as they're going to come up, right? And the AI is going to focus on usually one major set of cards, possibly. You saw how it rotates with other things, but in this case, the one I was playing, they're going to take a lot of space cards. So you know you're going to get a lot of space churn. So you're going to probably want to use your influence over there to see if you can benefit from them taking that, or you can protect what you're doing. It all depends. I played at a different time where it took a lot of green cards. So there was a ton of green card churn. But you're also going to know that, you know, with green cards, unless it's focusing on those, it's probably not going to take very many because there's only one spot on their board that they would be in the green zone to take them. And you know all that, right? So I think one thing that's important to do is understand what the bot is going to do so that you can understand the kind of stuff that you're going to deal with. If you want more green churn, you're going to have to do it yourself in this case. However, if you're playing against the bot that eats a lot of the green cards, it's going to take card after card after card like it did on me when I was playing it, you know, in my previous game, not this one that I showed you here. So it all depends. I see a lot of people saying the bot's swingy. I don't know that yet because the bot beat me by a lot the first game, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I had a pretty mediocre score. I was just feeling out the mechanics. And I think that there is a lot to consider here. There are a lot of choices. There are a lot of things you can focus on. Literally, there's, let's see, there's 12 worker actions at any given time, and then a couple that you won't most likely take, but that's up to 16. You won't have the workers for all those, but when you do, you have to consider, what if I do get the workers? Well, I can get some different actions. You got all the different dice actions. Every card you play, not everyone, but many of the cards you play are going to unlock other actions you can take. So this game has got a cornucopia of actions that you can consider, which I love. I love the variety and all the things you can do. I think that is cool. The game is constrained in a way that you got to have the right coins for what you want to do. You got to have the right provisions. But if you can be smart in how you chain these things together, you can have one action now pay for another action in the future. You know, I didn't really talk too much about that, but if you have a card that needs a specific type of resource, you can get that by putting one of those green cards under it and help you fuel that action a little better. So there's a lot of strategy on what you're doing. At the same time, with that journaling aspect, you got to be looking ahead to see, okay, if I put myself in this spot, next thing I know, I'm going to need 2 minaret cards. Do I have 2 minaret cards? Do I have the ability to get those cards? If not, I just put myself behind a wall that's going to take some time to unlock. So I've got to pay attention to when I'm doing a few things down the road and kind of see how I'm going to weave my way through that. I think that's fantastic. I think it's a lot of fun. I find that once I unlock that idea of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it just, the light bulb went on and this bot became very easy for me to run. No problem. It really kind of hit me and it's like, oh, got it. Perfect. The color coding, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it. No problems at that point. Beforehand, I was like trying to figure out, oh, is it this card? Is it that card? Do I got to look at this chart? And the chart, again, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So once you get that, and it says so in the rules, which I agree with, it says, it may seem like a lot of information, but once that light bulb goes on, boom, you got it. The idea that the bot cheats doesn't make sense to me. The bot's playing a different system, different game. It's gathering cards. It's not comparing how many it gets. It's just comparing the type of card for its score. I don't see that as cheating. I see that as a different game. And I want to thank the designer for putting that together so I could play this game and be able to do it without trying to compare even more priorities. Because one of the things they could have done is they could have said, if you have this many cards, the bot's going to take that. If you've got this many cards, the bot's going to take that. If it's got this many cards, the bot's going to take that. And you know what? That may have made for a more realistic, authentic experience where the bot doesn't cheat, but my gosh, would that have bogged it down in execution. And I am okay playing a game that I put most of my cerebral effort into my actions. And if the bot isn't quite like a human being, so be it. Again, this is coming from a guy who loves playing Uwe Rosenberg games where the bots are basically non-existent. If there is a bot, half the time you're blocking yourself. That's okay. I don't mind that at all. If you want a bot that provides an authentic player interactive experience and doesn't just churn the board and score points, then maybe you're gonna have a problem with this. But if you don't care, if you'd like to play this game, you'd like to just be able to play it by yourself and have a bot that does different things, but still churns the board and still scores points, then, well, I think you got it here. It's not a beat your own score, but if you think the bot is too swingy, you could treat it like a beat your own score. You could just decide, I'm going to ignore the bot's points and I'm just going to go for the highest score I can. One of the games I have where I have to do that is Bonfire. I love Bonfire, but man, that bot just creams me every time. I'm really playing against my own score because it's beating me so bad. So anyway, you could tell I really liked Wayfarers of the South Tigris. I think it's probably so far, I've only played it a couple times, but it's really getting to make me think this is probably my favorite game that Shem has done thus far when you compare it to the other two that I own of Paladins of the West Kingdom and Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I like those a lot. I like both of those games. I think this one I like just a smidge more because I love the options. It isn't nearly as constrained as Paladins, where Paladins there's a lot of angst there trying to get your stuff going and grind those gears. Here, if you can get things to work out, it kind of pays for itself, but you can take some of those dice and do other things to get the resources you need. Anyway, that's a very long-winded explanation, but I've actually really enjoyed this. I think it's a lot of fun. And I think you will too, if you take into account what I said about the way the solo bot behaves, and if you can master those priorities pretty quickly. Either way, I hope this was very informative to you to help you either like the game, acquire it, or avoid the game because you didn't like what you see here. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Whatever you decide to play in the future, I hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy, everybody.